The Rector of the University for Peace will now introduce the keynote speaker.
It's a great pleasure and a great honor for us to be able to welcome to our campus today a person who has, I think without any exaggeration, played one of the key roles in lifting the role of women, especially in Africa, but I think more generally, up to a center of attention and priority for many people around the world. I think as I go through her biography a little bit, you will understand what I mean. Bineta Diop of Senegal is the executive director and also the founder of Femmes, Africa, Solidarité, FAS. She began her international career in human rights as program coordinator of the International Commission of Jurists, where she obtained extensive experience in human rights issues not only in Africa, but also in Asia and Latin America. Bineta Diop has observed elections in post-conflict areas such as Liberia and facilitated peace talks, particularly for Burundian and Congolese women. As a member of the African Union Women Committee for Peace and Development, Madame Diop played an instrumental role in achieving gender parity within the African Union Commission in 2003. To strengthen these programs, Diop is mobilizing all her efforts in building a Pan-African Center for Gender, Peace, and Development in Dakar, Senegal. This Center of Excellence will serve as a hub for building African leadership with a focus on gender and peaceful resolution of conflicts. Madame Diop has received many awards from women's groups, such as the Leadership and Good Governance Award from the International Women's Federation for World Peace. She was named one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine in 2011. Madame Diop has been elected as Vice President of the African Union Women's Committee and chairs the United Nations Working Group on Peace in Geneva. She also serves as a member of the group of international advisors to the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC. I'd like to add that yesterday, UPEACE was very proud to sign an agreement with Madame Diop, FAS, and also with the University from Dakar in order to essentially create a new version of our gender and peace program in Dakar, which will be mainly focused on African women. So I'd like to ask you to welcome Madame Diop as our keynote speaker today.
Thank you for this nice introduction. Sometimes I ask if it's really me, but anyway, we have to accept this sometime. Excellencies, Mr. John Maresca, the Rector of the University for Peace, but also Professor Gabriel Makaya, Chairman of the International Academic Council, the Vice Rector, Mr. Amar Abdallah, the Associate Vice Rector, Mr. Victor Valle, Associate Vice Rector, Mrs. Dina Rodriguez, esteemed graduates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be invited today to address you at this occasion of the University for Peace Commencement 2012. The delegation that accompanies me, including the representative of the University of Sheikh Anta Diop of Dakar, Professor Tal, the representative of the Pan-African Center for Gender, Peace and Development, Madam Kumba Falven, we are very proud to be part of this celebration today in Costa Rica, this beautiful country. We are very happy to be here today. Our presence demonstrates how much we cherish the work that UPEACE is doing not only in Costa Rica, but around the world. I would tell you how much we appreciate UPEACE in Africa. The Africa program is one of the best in our continent. And you can see in the continent of Africa how much you are making great impact. We are very proud to be associated with you. Let me first congratulate the faculty, the staff of the UPEACE, and each and every one of you graduating today for your great achievement. Let me also associate to this the parents who are here today. I see the efforts that you are making to see your children reaching where they are in the peace world. Today is a big day. I know that the student you have been trying to tackle by listening to you, the world challenges through your coursework, and that you recognize how difficult the world's problems are. Let me tell you, it does not get much easier in the working world. It gets tougher. But I know that those of you who are graduating today are here because you have already seen something of the world that has spurred you thinking, I can do something, I can make this happen. I'm sure that each of you in your own way has experienced a moment when you realize that peace was worth working for. And indeed, I can tell you what I practice in the field it is. You have chosen an important and noble path, but when we look out at this world that holds so many challenges, this noble path toward peace seems so long and fraught with difficulties. But if there is one thing I can say today that will stay with you, I hope, is that every challenge is an opportunity for growth. And every action you take toward growth and positive change does count. Ellen Keller, who was the first deaf-blind person to earn a bachelor degree, had some wise words. Listen to this. We ask ourselves why terrible obstacles should be placed in our path. We cannot but wonder at times why we cannot have smooth sailing instead of being compelled always to fight against adverse winds and rough seas. No doubt the reason is that character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experiences of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. I myself know something about challenges. I'm a woman who was born in Africa. In the 50s, you can see my age. So right from the start, there were some hurdles. As a child growing up in Senegal, I wanted to understand everything. I was curious to know about the world what was happening. I had next to me somebody that I admire so much, my mother. I was always shadowing her, following her example. My mother grew up in a traditional society and was limited by the dearth of opportunities around her. She was born to be a leader, but women during that time were not supposed to go into any public sphere or political realm. Nevertheless, she found an opportunity. She was very active in political. She was part of women wings of a political party. So she found herself, as I told you, constrained by a box that her society had placed around her. But there was a moment when she saw a crack in the box when she entered into that politics. She stepped outside that box. She stepped on top of it. She danced all around it. Through hard work and determination, through persevering despite everything, she became a respected leader in her own community. She found herself a way to effect change, raise children like me and others who would go on to the same. By finding a chance to shine and using that opportunity for growth, I respect and honor her legacy by doing my best to see each challenge as an opportunity for growth and transformation. Today, we may see images of Africa in the media, bad images, and hear the difficulties that our continent is facing. Some of you, I'm sure, have been in Africa, you have traveled there, you have seen it. My sisters from Africa can tell you more about it. So there is no doubt that those challenges to the development of my continent and the complexity of solving them remain. But those challenges is not just Africa facing them. We find society where the inequality, exclusion, lack of justice and trust exists. But wondrous things about Africa and many society is that to match the scale of those difficulties I mentioned, we have an incredible capacity of resourcefulness. There are so many people, especially young people like you, who are finding creative solutions to problems and devising successful strategy for transformative growth. Many initiatives I see in the field when I visit Africa, in the form of sustainable economic growth, creation of gainful employment opportunity exists sometimes, especially in the agriculture sector more and more. Improve access to comprehensive education and health care, environmental sound, sustainable agriculture practice, and natural resource usage. When I hear all the master that I see, you are addressing what Africa needs, the climate change issues, the need for climate justice. All these initiatives are needed in my continent. Some are happening, and we think that we're getting multiplied effects. And in my eyes, lying the heart of this social transformation, what I call myself, my gender revolution. Africa have to transform through the gender. What I mean by gender revolution is that from the grassroots level to the political leaders, more and more women are waking up to their potential as agents for change. You see them here. I can recognize them. Those leaders that are already in the community will make those change. And society as a whole in Africa is realizing that women represent a wealth of potential for positive advancement at every level. And any social transformation now in my continent will go through the women. That is reality. But it was not very easy. Has not been always this way. I think that when I created the organization that I represent here, Femmes Africa Solidarité, with many other women in Africa, my colleague, we look around and we see that African women were so much suffering. Something needed to be done. And I'm going to share some of the things we have done so far since 1996, based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is protection. I tell you right away those 3 pillars. Protection of women, participation of women in decision making, especially in peace process, and the prevention issue, that women don't face what some of you have said, violence against women. So the first thing we did was to look into the African Charter on Human Rights, which is very linked to the International Convention, the International Charter. But we found that when our fathers were building those charter, that Charter of Human Rights, the issues of women's rights were absent. So we women of Africa, we took the leadership to transform that charter and make sure that there was an additional protocol to this charter that addressed the issue of the women and guarantee our rights, including the right to take part in the political process, to social and political equality with men, and to control our reproductive health, among other rights. We fought. It's one of a great protocol that you find in the world addressing women's rights. The second thing we did was also looking into the Beijing process that women were suffering. There was a tent in Dakar in 1995 where you find women that have been raped, massive. As you know, in our war in Africa, rape have been an arm used as a weapon of war. That is reality in the ground. And when you sit down with the women that have been raped, and I see my sisters from Rwanda who have experienced genocide, you know what we talk about when we talk about rape. So we say that let's make sure that women are not just as victims, but they can contribute to bringing solution to their country. And I see women of Rwanda have been working so hard to transform your country. I salute your effort. 52% plus are now represented in your parliament. And this is about the transformation I have been talking about. So we started bringing women around the table to bring the agenda, what I call the human security agenda, at the table. You know, when men are sitting to discuss agreement, where men are sitting around the table to make sure that they are signing an agreement, those who are bring war in our continent, the women are absent most of the time. So what we do is to make sure that we are not an homogeneous group, and we have many differences, but sometimes we can agree on an agenda when we talk about human security, the education issue, the health issue. We might disagree, but on those issues we can agree. And this is the human security compared to the military security that women can bring at the table. And that's what we facilitate I worked with President Mandela. I had a chance to work with him on the Burundi process to bring the participation of women in that process. I had the chance to work with Julius Nyerere. I had the chance to work with many other leaders of Africa to bring the contribution of women in peace negotiation. So that is some of the issue of participation. But what we do also is so many countries have signed or ratified protocol at the UN, in the Security Council, in the Human Rights Council in Geneva. But do our member states implement them? We have to make sure that we monitor what they preach. Most of the time they ratify it, but they don't implement. Some part of our work is to go to the Security Council. You know, there is a way of approaching the Security Council. The ARIA formula that some of you might know, have studied in international relations, how to access to the Security Council and have a dialogue with them. There is a resolution which is very important, which is 1325, 1325. I can tell you America recently has adopted a plan of action on 1325. So we can monitor when America is sending military. America, I mean USA. When they send military personnel to conflict zone, with that agenda you can control if they have respect to human rights in the field. Some countries like Burundi, like my country and others, have also adopted 1325 resolution. It's a process that have been engaged to make sure that some member states have that protocol. In the prevention side, just to give you an example, recently we had election in Senegal, which everybody said that it was going to be very violent. We put a situation room, which we call the Women's Situation Room, with all the ingredients, mobilization. We make sure that we train the media. We make sure that we train the women. We make sure that we use the new technology and social media to monitor the election. And I think we have been successful. Many countries, including the new government, have visited the situation room to applaud the efforts that have been done by the women. So what I have learned over the years, my fellow student, I can say that because I'm always learning, is what I have learned in this process and some quality that are needed to bring about result. The first is the power of listening. I have heard many of you saying that. Listening. Listening with your ears, but your heart. I think that is the last exercise we have done. Listen with your heart. A way to enrich yourself and to understand others. The second is inclusion. I have also seen that part of you that you are having participatory approach, engaging people from all walks of life to be part of the decision-making process. The third is compromise. And I say compromise does not, you don't give up on your principle or your values, but compromise in understanding what the other want to reach durable solution. You have to give and take. The fourth is action. Madam Indira Gandhi, you know, who was the first woman to become Prime Minister of India, have a bias for action. She says, let's see something happen now. You can break that big plan, because I think some of you, when you go out, you have a very big plan. So break that big plan into small steps and take the first step right away. That's action. Step by step, you reach there. We realize also that a very powerful instrument while we are here today for lasting peace and human security in Africa is education. Education of our young people in our continent. Women and youth are building alliances. That's what we do. We don't isolate our boys and girls. We are sitting together, discussing, and I think the Arab Spring have shown us the way that we need to have that linkages between women and girls and young people. We have established, as the rector have said, and this is my dream, a Pan-African Center that FAS have created in Senegal, but which cover all over Africa in 2005. And what I have been doing with this lady, Dina, was to started doing intensive course for our young people in Africa. And so far we have, for the last 4 years, trained so many young people, men and women, that are engaged in the life, the work life already in our society. Yesterday we signed with the University of Peace, the University Sheikh Anta Diop, and funded by the African Capacity Building Foundation. We have more than $2 million received from the ACBF to start the master. Inshallah, by October in Dakar, and I appeal to many of you to make sure that this Master 2 program become known and become part of your family. I cannot be here and speak of peace, of transformation, and the potential of women without acknowledging the great work done by great women of Africa. Somebody have mentioned the Nobel laureate. I will start by my president that I like so much. She's a member of my organization, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. You heard about her from Liberia. The first female elected president of Africa in 2011 Nobel Peace Prize. The work that she undertook is immense. Liberia have been devastated for the last 15 years. She's trying to construct. She's doing well, I can tell you, engaging with the women that have been abused, but also the issue of child soldiers. She's doing very well, I can tell you. And also next to her, you have the women peace activist Lima Bowie, also Nobel Peace Laureate 2011. As you could see, Africa have sons and daughters that are contributing to humanity by building peace. That brings me to my sister, who was the first one to win Nobel Peace Prize, Wangari Maathai. When I visited yesterday the Earth Charter building, where Wangari is, she should be very proud. And you should be proud, because I know that Wangari have been here. This is one of the initiatives she would love to see. You know, she created the Green Belt movement. She was planting trees. She was one of our first women in the environment that have built that agenda for Africa. The Green Belt movement lent a significant voice of the pro-democracy movement. She called for responsible government across the continent, and I think people listened to her. Wangari leadership was not limited to her home country. She was a tireless advocate for peace, justice, and equity in the global level. You know, she told a story one day, a story of a bird. She said, when fire breaks out in a huge forest, all the animals flee in fear, except a tiny bird. The little bird flies back and forth, its beak filled with water. The other animals were terrified into inaction. When they ask what the bird can possibly accomplish with his small beak, the little bird answers, I'm doing the best I can. So when we ask Wangari the difficulties she faces, she said, I certainly don't want to be the animals watching as the planet goes down the drain. I will be that bird. I will do the best I can. So I think that the story of Wangari, what it simply says, that each of us can play a role. Congratulations again. I wish for each and every one of you that you will find your role and honor this beautiful world by doing the best you can to make it just that much better. Thank you and muchas gracias.